Throughout the semester, I was able to observe myself with critical thinking. I learned new tips and I was able to apply them throughout the semester. The reader response theory is a reading strategy that I applied to many of the readings this semester. It connects the reader with the text of the story. I use this tool on various poems as well as the short stories that we have read. Where I usually get confused is at the beginning of the stories because I feel like you get a lot of information most of the time. The reader response tool helps eliminate the confusion. It contains various sections such as first thoughts, questions that arose when you were reading, how a second reading changes your understanding, cultural or historical references, questions for the author, and what the author's message is for the story. An example of my reader response is from the short story Winter Dreams by F. Scott Fitzgerald. The reader response helped me understand the reading better and changed my initial understandings. I was able to jot down any information that I didn't understand, including any questions that I would have for the author. By being able to write down various information when it arose, it limited the amount of confusion. Some of the questions that arose during the story were, why does Dexter keep going after Judy if she doesn't accept him? Another is, why does Dexter decide to go to war after Judy asks him to marry her instead of Irene? After rereading the short story, The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien, I noticed there were rhetorical devices and literary elements that were used throughout. For example, humor, visual imagery, and allusion were used. To elaborate on humor, it states, as a medic, Rat Kiley carried a canvas satchel filled with morphine and plasma and malaria tablets and surgical tape and comic books and all the things a medic would carry, including M&Ms for especially bad wounds, for a total weight of 20 pounds. This is found on page 298. Here he explains what everyone carried with them, the physical items. What makes it ironic is that he added the M&Ms for the especially bad wounds. As being soldiers, you would think that they are tough and not scared of war. By using this reading strategy, such as active reading, I was able to take notes in the margins as well as highlighting to focus my reading on important language, such as the difference in rhetorical devices. For one of our digital tools that we have used this semester is Flipgrid. We have gotten the chance to record ourselves to answer a prompt that was assigned during a weekly module. I have felt that this really helped me with understanding critical thinking. As this class was online, it also made me feel more connected with the class. I was allowed to listen to my classmates and listen to what they thought about the reading. If something that I thought was confusing, they may have explained it better in their Flipgrid. Another tool that I got to use was the slide shares with the Twitter feed. I thought this was very interesting and hearing what my classmates saw on their feed. One connection that I had this semester is when I was in lab and we learned how to percuss a patient. We learned that there are different sounds to hear when percussing the abdomen. I already knew how to do it, but I learned that I was doing it wrong for all this time. When I found out the right way to do it, this was my aha moment for my lab class. But this relates to the but I can relate this feeling back to myself as a learner. As reading a textbook is much different than reading a story, I was able to relate it back to the themes and being a critical thinker. By using the different skills that we have learned, such as highlighting and being an active reader, I was able to understand the material better. When reading the textbook, they give a lot of information at once. If I am an active reader, I am able to see where I get confused and able to ask questions based on that. The tools of the critical thinker helped me with other classes in the outside world. One challenge that I have faced as a critical reader was with the play Antigone by Socrates. As reading various plays in high school, I have always thought that it was confusing and harder to understand the Old English language. I found it difficult to apply the critical thinking tools because I struggled trying to figure out what it was talking about. I decided that it was best to search the meaning of the storyline. By getting an understanding of what was happening, I was able to apply the critical thinking skills that I have learned. I was able to annotate the majority of the play after realizing the story behind it. By being an active reader, I learned best with highlighting, specifically when I color code the characters. I assign a specific color to each character to identify key components within the conversation. By being an active reader and rereading the play various times, I was able to understand the conversation and realize the characterization between one another. This helped me understand the details within the play. By researching what the play was about beforehand, rereading it, as well as highlighting it, it really helped make the story come together and understand the confusion parts of the story. By doing this, it allowed me to understand each character analysis. I have always disliked reading, and I was never interested to read something if I didn't have to. This changed this year. By taking this English class, I have gained the interest in reading. The most memorable experience I had was with the War Unit, when we read The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien. This short story impacted me as a critical reader. I mentioned The Things They Carried before with understanding rhetorical devices. This story reflected on the physical and emotional burdens of each soldier. With each character brought something else along with them. Even though I am not participating in war, I feel that at times I am carrying different items with me. There are times that I feel I am also carrying physical and emotional burdens. I found this interesting because I see myself in many of the characters. My aha moment for this class was during the poetry unit. We had a choice of pictures that we could choose from and write a poem based on that picture. English was never my strong subject in school. Many people told me that it was okay to fail. With rarely writing poems, I thought that this statement was going to be true. However, I learned that don't let other people tell you you can't do something. Just because you're not familiar with something doesn't mean you're going to fail at it. If you put your mind to something, you can succeed and improve on various skills. My aha moment was writing this poem. I was able to prove myself wrong and learned the skills on how to write a poem. English was very interesting this semester. I feel like I came a long way with the critical thinking and developing the different methods and using those tools with other classes. One thing that I am now able to use throughout with other classes is the usage of the worksheets and using new skills that I have learned with critical thinking. By using these tools, I would become more familiar with critical thinking and engage in conversations better because I am actively becoming engaged with the readings.